As I sat down on my desk trying to write up new ideas for future Doctor Who stories for the Mysterious Doctor Adventures, I had a sense that hadn't occurred to me before. I felt like I was running out of ideas. I'd been so preoccupied with my recent studies that I didn't have much time to really come up with newer concepts. As weeks turned into months, it got ever more trickier and ever so tiring. And with the recent season with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor now come and gone, it got me thinking. The second relaunch of the series had very mixed reactions, and I could see why. It felt a little bit too short, and we didn't get enough time to see our Doctor. And whilst I was reading, I had an idea. What if I was showrunner of Doctor Who? Technically, I do that with the Mysterious Doctor Adventures, but what if I was the showrunner after Russell T Davies? What would be my direction for the show?
You know what? I think I should discuss my ideas on how I would take over Doctor Who. So without further ado, let's begin the video.
Now before we jump into the video, I would like to give a bit of context on why I decided to go with this idea. I am already aware that other YouTubers such as the Universals and the Confused Adipose have already done this idea, but I think it'd be kinda cool if I did my own take on what I would do with the show. Doctor Who's a show with endless possibilities, with multiple incarnations, and of course with many different showrunners taking over the series, with each of them giving their own special stamp on how they would be seen as a showrunner. From the Barry Letts era with its more earthbound tales, Philip Hinchcliffe's earlier darker years for the 4th Doctor, the John Nathan Turner years where it was a lot more pantomime and techno, to even the more modern eras of the 21st century, with Russell's first stint being a soft reboot, the Stephen Moffat era with its more fairy tale-like stories and its ever so growing story arcs, and even the Chris Chibnall era. Even if I'm not a big fan of what he did with the show, at least he had his own mark on the series.
Now, a lot of you would be wondering what I would do with the show and what would be the main tone for it. Well, simply, I'd be taking it back to its more older roots of 2005. Now, I know what you're thinking, isn't this just being a carbon copy of what Season 1 was like? Well, I want to try and be a bit more creative, while still continuing a lot of references to the previous eras that came before, but also trying to make it more acceptable for newcomers and the casual audience.
The key thing that I want my first series of the show to do is for the first season to have 10 episodes, with the season finale being a 2-parter. Each episode would be 50 minutes in length, whilst the finale will be an hour long. This will come in quite handy as I would want to develop the characters but also have a good moving pace for the story to go along. When it came to choosing my 2 main leads for this idea, it was a lot more harder than I thought it was. Originally for the Doctor, I was going to choose Michael Sheen. However, with that being ever so impossible nowadays, and especially with Michael Sheen being a lot more of a busier actor nowadays, I hardly think that'll ever happen, and mainly we'll see it more as a dream. So instead I decided to think a little bit more harder, and one actor came in mind. He's not incredibly well known, but he definitely has the feel for what the Doctor should be. So for my choice, I'm going to go with Ben Daniels, who you may know from many TV shows such as Law & Order UK, The Crown, the recent TV adaptation of Interview with the Vampire, and way too much to count. Whilst he is a little bit more older and not much of a big name, a role like this could definitely boost up his career, and from the work that I've seen him in, he definitely has the feel of what my Doctor should be portrayed as. He can be a bit more darker, but also still have that caring heart that the Doctor would usually have. Fun fact, he was almost going to be the Doctor when Matt Smith was leaving, but we all know that Peter Capaldi eventually got the role of the 12th Doctor. So maybe this time I could give him the second chance of being the Doctor, whilst also giving his own take on the character. For his personality, I would give him a good blend of each of the titular Doctors, with the 3rd Doctor's charm and charisma, 9's reclusiveness of the universe around him, with a nice little dash of the 7th Doctor's more colder and darker side, And just for the hell of it, let's have a little bit of 12's rebelliousness involved in the character. As for Ben Daniels' costume, I would want it to be a bit more casual and stripped down and not go too overboard with scarves and question marks. With him wearing a green tucker jacket, a plain casual white shirt, and a tie that could change into multiple different variants. In fact, if he was cast, he would be the second LGBT actor to play the Doctor, with him being married to the late Ian Glenda. And with his Doctor being a bit more reclusive, he would later open up about his past and of course be a bit more protective, especially with him feeling like an outsider at times.
And again, like Nines, Ben Daniels' Doctor would be more pre-established, so no need to have a regeneration to confuse any sort of audience. I would save that for a later time in the future.
And now we get to our next role, the Companion. And let me tell you, it was way more harder to choose, as a lot of the actors that I have seen being cast as companions have been relative unknowns but have gone on to have bigger careers. From Billie Piper, Karen Gillan, Pearl Mackie, Manda Gill, and even Millie Gibson were quite unknown to me. So I might want to do the same thing here and choose someone completely out of the blue, but would definitely work for the Companion. My choice would be Amelia Geffing. Whilst not an entirely big name, she has been popping up every so often. From her own comedy TV show, The Amelia Geffing Complex, to even Marian George. And a show like Doctor Who can definitely show her skills as an actor. Now, the one thing I've noticed in every single Companion up to 2005, that they've all been from modern day London, and I can agree with a lot of people, it is getting boring and repetitive. So I'm going to be very creative with this and actually make Amelia Geffing's character, Stacey Reid, actually being a companion from the past. To be even more specific, the first day of 1970, the 1st of January. Her character would have the intelligence of both Jo Grant and Sarah Jane Smith, but also the youthfulness of the two modern companions that I adore the most, Rose Tyler and Amy Pond. And with Stacey coming from a more different era, it'd be kinda cool to actually have her visit the present day at times and learning all types of different things that are very different from her time of the 1970s. There will also be another companion included, but we're going to save him for a later episode. So for now, it's just going to be a TARDIS duo, an older Doctor and a younger companion. That sounds slightly familiar, might I say. For both the TARDIS's exterior and interior, it was a coin toss between keeping the RTD2 one or going with a completely different design. And so I just decided to do something completely different. For the exterior, I wanted to make it similar to the first Doctor's box, whilst being more of a tribute to the actual Metropolitan Police boxes. As for the interior, something a little bit more classical, almost similar to the Season 27 console that was never used. The Sonic Screwdriver would be more of a blend of classic and new, with it being more similar to the 4th Doctor Sonic, but with it having a red light like the War Doctor Sonic. The theme music would be the one created by Kiaru. If you want to actually have a good listen, then I highly recommend listening to it in the link description below. And the title sequence itself would keep the 2023 titles, but would have some minor changes. If you want to see a video of that, link in the description below.
Now that we've got all the big details out of the way, let's get into the main series of My Era of Doctor Who.
We begin our journey quite simply with episode 1, titled A Hero's Return. It's January the 1st, 1970, as London rests in a post-holiday calm. We are then introduced to Stacey Reid, a young telephone operator who's starting her first day back at work. On her way, she notices a blue police box standing inconspicuously on the street. She does know that they are slowly but surely disappearing off from the streets, and just dismisses it as an ordinary fixture along her route to work. While Stacey is on her tea break, she notices on the news that there are going to be a massive dangerous storm clouds approaching the city of London, which surprisingly weren't registered on for today. This ends up being proven true as the skies turn completely dark red. Yet high above Earth, a massive spaceship looms above the planet. Its vessel belongs to the Kairafi, a powerful lizard-like alien race led by their ruthless and cunning leader, Itraxa. A number of Kairafi soldiers end up teleporting to planet Earth, taking several people hostage. As Stacey flees from the chaos happening around her, she is immediately cornered by one of the Kairafi, ready to be taken as prisoner. However, she is suddenly pulled to safety by a mysterious man who introduces himself to be only as the Doctor. The Doctor tells Stacey to get back home and barricade every single part of the house that she can. However, Stacey instead decides to drag him along with him back to her place. As the two flee from the carnage, a number of Kairafi soldiers chase after them. but that immediately comes to a halt as they're both immediately teleported right up to the Kyrafi spacecraft. Now taken as prisoners, the Doctor tries to find a way to get himself out. Although Stacy's intrigued by her strange rescuer, the Doctor remains quite quiet, only revealing to her that he is merely but a traveller, going from one place after another, getting into scrapes, and just having a bit of fun. Eventually, the Doctor is taken into Atrax's headquarters for questioning. The Doctor learns a bit more about the Kyrafi's plan, as they are set to disable all power and communication across London, orchestrating a world city blackout where they paralyze the capital, allowing for them to target key figures and installing chaos throughout the entire world. Eventually, once it's all done, they'll destroy the planet and move on to the next. Eventually, the Doctor comes up with a much clever plan. By reversing the settings from the control panel and shutting down all systems of the Kyrafi ship, Stacy manages to get everybody out in time, whilst the Doctor faces Atraxa for a final fight. The Doctor eventually wins, and both he and Stacy get out in time before the ship explodes, completely thwarting the Kyrafi invasion. Planet Earth has now been saved, and everyone goes back to their lives as per usual. Just before the two say goodbye, the Doctor offers Stacy the chance to travel with him in the TARDIS, which he reveals is the police box which Stacy had passed earlier. Stacy at first is hesitant, but once she enters inside, her breath is completely taken away by the beauty of the interior, which she compares to some of the spacecrafts in her favourite comic books. The Doctor ensures Stacy that his ship is a time and space machine, and that it also will get her home just in any time she needs. Stacy accepts the Doctor's invitation to travel with him, and so, as the Doctor sets the coordinates to their next location, the two are ready to embark on brand new adventures throughout the whole of time and space. So as you can tell, the first episode would be rather simple. A simple alien invasion type story, but gives the series a fresh new start. We get introduced to our companion for the first half, and then following on for that, when she gets attacked, we are soon met with the Doctor. It might not be super strong, but we want to make a good impression for the first time viewers, and not having to rely on previous information that has come before it. Next up we have episode 2, that being Brave New World. For Stacy's first trip in the TARDIS, the Doctor takes her to the distant planet of Memoria, where the species of that planet have built a massive underground city deep beneath the surface of the planet. As the two explore the beautiful surroundings of the city, they realize that the biggest rule is that no one is to go above the surface, as it is believed that the planet has been overrun by giant octopus-like creatures known as the Hydrajacks. Now realizing the horrible truth, the Doctor must find a way to get the Hydrajacks back to their own world by using a portal, and to hopefully bring the people of Memoria back to the surface. As you can tell from the main premise, this story feels a little bit like The Beast Below from Series 5, as there isn't really too much of a big main villain, just some giant creatures that are simply lost from their home world. So the Doctor would have a choice whether to destroy them or send them back home. The Doctor would decide to send the creatures back home, back to their home world. So mostly this story would be a bit of a happy ending in the most part. While the first 2 episodes are a lot more smoother, we're only just getting started. Now we reach to episode 3, where we get a little bit historical with the Bushranger.
Oh look, a Mysterious Doctor episode being adapted for the series. What a surprise!
So as you can tell from my era, I would be adapting a few Mysterious Doctor stories, but would have to change them quite a bit. Plus, the main show has never really done a proper Australian story for once, so this could be a good chance, if we're lucky, to actually bring the cast and crew over to Australia, or get some Australian actors to make it a bit more authentic. As for the main story, it would mostly remain the same, but would also be heavily based on the original first draft, which had Lily Newman. To give the quick rundown, the Doctor and Stacy find themselves in 1880 on the day of Ned Kelly's last stand. Eventually coming across the titular outlaw and his gang, they are believed to be undercover police and are almost about to be executed. That is until a knight from the Crusades called Remington helps in to save the day. Remington reveals that he's somewhat travelled forwards in time after encountering a mysterious robed figure. This turns out to be none other than the monk who's been playing behind all this, played here by Matt Berry. The Doctor would have to be sure to make sure that history stays in flux, whilst also trying to stop the monk from going through his usual time travel shenanigans. So yeah, The Bushranger is obviously a fun pseudo-historical romp with a lot of fun and action. Plus, it would be really nice to have another Time Lord feature in the series that isn't the Master or the Rani. And having Matt Berry as the monk would be an excellent fit for Ben Daniels' Doctor. Heck, the two could even bicker a little bit on their differences and how much they haven't seen each other in years. And if you want to listen to the original story itself, Link in the description below. Our next episode is Primeval Rage. The TARDIS receives a distress call which is coming from present-day Earth. The Doctor and Stacy immediately decide to follow it, and they both find that the distress call was sent out by none other than one of the Doctor's oldest friends, Martha Jones. Martha then briefs the Doctor and Stacy on the titular situation that they are dealing with, which appears that Starman's ooze, which was locked away back in the 70s, has been blowing throughout several areas across the United Kingdom, and that anyone who makes contact with the ooze starts to morph into the mutated were-like creatures known as the Primords, who were last seen in Inferno. However, it is revealed that the liquid substance is now in the hands of Professor Starman's grandson Friedrich, who wishes to use the Primords to attack any opposing enemies that consider his methods of pollution and toxic waste being too dangerous for the environment. So it's up to the Doctor, Stacy and Martha to try and stop the Primord invasion, whilst trying to rekindle an old friendship that may have been lost to time. This story would be somewhat of a spiritual sequel to Inferno, whilst also including an environmental message about the dangers of nuclear waste. However, the message itself wouldn't be shoved down people's throats, but would be a little bit more minor, as the main focus is for the viewer's enjoyment. Plus, this would be a brilliant character piece for the Doctor and Martha, as the two would share a quiet moment together, reflecting on the years since they last met. Martha would open up for the many challenges she had after they last saw each other in End of Time, while the Doctor, in a rare moment of vulnerability, speaks of his loneliness that he has since grappled since learning of the events of the Timeless Child, and the struggle of trying to find Susan but feeling too afraid that he's all alone. The Doctor would also apologise to Martha on how he often overlooked her strength and loyalty during the time they had together, confessing his gratitude of her friendship and the care that she showed him, though he was too guarded to tell her back then. Plus, the interaction between Stacy and Martha would be similar to both Sarah Jane and Rose in School Reunion. Plus, it'd be an awesome showcase to fully show off the Primords in action, as they did get overshadowed in their original appearance. So yeah, an entertaining story with a returning companion, and a monster that you wouldn't expect returning to the show. Next up we have The Invisible Men. This story, like the Bushrangers, would retell the original audio story that I wrote years ago, but with some minor changes. To give you a better understanding, here's how it would go. The TARDIS lands in the streets of Bristol in 1895, where the Doctor and Stacy quickly pick up rumours on the strange events unfolding in the local inn, as rumours have been spreading of two unseen figures wreaking havoc above in the second floor, yet somehow somewhat links to the disappearances of Dr. Ivan Rains, a once celebrated scientist, and his young assistant Adrian Yates, who both mysteriously vanished without a trace. The Doctor and Stacy would investigate the pub along with a police constable, Trevor Campbell, where they confront the two men in the hotel room, only for Ivan to reveal that they are both completely invisible men. Whilst Adrian wants to try and find a cure to reverse him back to normal, Ivan on the other hand wants to use his power to conquer the world. The rest of the story would be an abridged adaptation of the original Invisible Man novel, with the climax taking place in Ivan's laboratory, where the Doctor and Trevor knock him unconsciously, reverting him back to his normal state. Again, if you want to get the feel of the original story of the Invisible Men, link in the description below. Now we reach to the most meta concept that this series could ever craft up, that being, don't panic. This story would center on Douglas Adams. Yes, that Douglas Adams, as he's trapped in a hotel room with his editor trying to complete So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, while struggling on how the story could actually work. Then all of a sudden, the TARDIS crash lands into the hotel, and with that the Doctor pops out and says hello to his old friend. Yes, the Doctor is friends with Douglas Adams in this story. Stacy would also be introduced to Douglas, as she is not yet familiar with his work. The Doctor warns Douglas that there is an alien spacecraft which is about to arrive its way onto Earth, almost as if like the Vogons are about to attack Earth, just like in the first Hitchhiker's book. Eventually, the Doctor, Stacy and Douglas are eventually teleported onto the ship of the Chaldites, a species of intellectual beings determined to create the greatest novel in the world by kidnapping some of Earth's greatest authors. The Chaldites are willing to use Douglas's minds as they believe that he is the greatest author ever to exist. If not, they will disintegrate the planet of Earth and eventually sell off parts of it to other alien organizations for profit. So it's up to the Doctor and Stacy to try to defeat the Chaldites, whilst also encouraging Douglas that there is much more to continue and that life is worth living. This is the most ludicrous idea that I would want the series to do. Not only with the Doctor meeting one of the greatest writers ever to exist, but also one of the actual script editors of the show. Plus, with the episodes, there would be a bit of nods to Douglas's time on the series, like the slight mention of the certain adventures like Sharda or even City of Death. It would also be rather nice if the Doctor and Stacy take Douglas to the far universe, where the universe praises his writing, even though he would sadly pass away in 2001. It would really give Vincent and the Doctor vibes, but with one of the most influential authors in both science fiction and comedy history.
And again, with Don't Panic, it is another mysterious Doctor Venture story, but it hasn't actually been written yet, so you're basically getting an early treat of what is to come.
Whilst I am using this story to spread out this video a little bit, it's a nice little idea that I wanted to share for this occasion. Hell, I definitely would do this story for my era. With that part said, let's continue onwards. The 7th story in the season would be Power of the Mind Crystal. The story opens with Tom Campbell, played here by Alfred Enoch. As he makes his patrol across the street, he notices a suspicious car parked outside the shop. Before he can investigate any further, he's attacked by a man emerging from the vehicle. After getting beaten up, an explosion rocks the area as 2 masked men emerge in the nearby jewelry store, clutching their prize with a good goodies and a rare diamond. Whilst chasing after the car, Tom notices a police box and enters inside for recovering, only to find that he's entered inside the TARDIS where the Doctor and Stacy find him. Tom faints outside the box and Stacy comes to his aid and quickly tends to his injuries. So as you can guess, the first part of this episode before the title sequence would be very similar to Bernard Cribben's introduction in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
You know, it's kind of interesting I would actually introduce the second companion by it being much of a tribute to the second Peter Cushing movie. I gotta admit, it's a good opening for a companion, by the way.
However, that's not just the only interesting thing that has happened on this day, as the titular diamond that the criminals had stolen is actually a powerful crystal which contains an alien criminal known as Cerberus, who was banished from his homeworld and locked inside a crystal, forever to be trapped in for centuries. The crystal would have the ability to mind control over the robbers for them to build a massive machine in order to give Cerberus a new fully formed body. The Doctor and Stacy would have to work with Tom in order to find the crystal and to stop Cerberus from finding a new body before taking over the entire universe. At the end of the story, just before the Doctor and Stacy have to go, Stacy convinces the Doctor to bring Tom along as a companion. Tom at first feels a little hesitant of joining along after all the crazy shenanigans that have happened during the day. The Doctor convinces Tom that he's helped quite a bit with this situation and is happy to bring him on board no matter what. Tom then agrees, and the TARDIS trio fully is merged. So yeah, we've got a TARDIS trio now. A female companion from the past, a modern day police officer from the present, and of course the Doctor being a mysterious time traveller from the future. So a nice little variety for our TARDIS trio. This story would be very much different from those that came before. Whilst it would have been a little bit more simple as it doesn't really contain much of an alien monster, it would somewhat have the same feel of Crime of the Century, the Lost Season 27 story, which also would have introduced a companion. Speaking of our other companion, Alfred Enoch as Tom Campbell would be an excellent choice to fill in the TARDIS crew. Not only a really good actor in his own right, but also being the son to the late William Russell who played Ian Chesterton. So you could say this is somewhat of a full circle moment. And it's a good reason that we have a TARDIS trio, because the final 3 stories are going to get a whole lot more complicated and way more darker. That titular story is The Shapeshifter. The TARDIS lands aboard a remote research base known as Atlas, surrounded by the isolated and stormy oceans on the planet of Celeveron. As the Doctor, Stacy and Tom arrive in the base, the entire area is both dormant and quiet, with only a few dead bodies lying around. As the crew continue to explore across the base, they notice that one of the crew members has been acting strangely off, as it turns out that they were originally killed off years ago as the base was infected by an unknown virus, and that the living specimen, numbered 802, is the only living thing and can shapeshift into anything and anyone in order for it to survive. Can the Doctor, Stacy and Tom still try and trust each other? Or could this be the end for their untimely adventures? Out of all the episodes that we've had so far in this season, this one would be the most experimental and the most character driven. The Shapeshifter itself would be a nice little homage to the titular thing in John Carpenter's 1982 movie, whilst also being this creepy parasite like the 1988 Blob. The tone for the story itself would be very similar to both Wild Blue Yonder and Midnight, with its more claustrophobic atmosphere and only taking place in one setting. There would also be this uncertainty towards the Doctor and his friends, as the three of them are trying to work out who is which one is the real version, and which one could be the titular shapeshifter. Overall, there isn't too much to say about this episode, but it's a good build-up for what is to come with the two-part finale. We begin our two-part finale with The Ultimate Weapon. The TARDIS lands in 1940s Berlin, where the Doctor, Stacy and Tom get held hostage by German soldiers, led by General Krogstad. They are then taken to Hertz Castle, in which a top-secret project is in the works and could change the course of history. The Doctor remains quite skeptical about it, only to find out that the German scientists are in league with the Daleks. These new model-like war tanks will be able to defeat the British forces and end up taking over the whole of the world.
So as you can tell, this is Victory of the Daleks, but a lot more darker, way more better told, and on the opposite side.
The Doctor tries his best to convince Krogstad to cease operations immediately, but Krogstad only sees the Doctor nothing more but an inferior, and locks him up. However, the Doctor and his companions soon investigate, and find out that the Daleks are not technically working for the Germans, but are actually spies sent by the Dalek Empire to prepare a secret invasion on Earth. Before the Doctor can act, Dalek ships descend from the skies, unleashing devastation across the world. Not only conquering Berlin, but the entire world falls along with it. The cliffhanger would have the Doctor and friends being cornered by a Dalek squadron. As they prepare to execute their final plan, the Doctor steps forward with his eyes blazing with defense, telling the Daleks to kill him and to spare the lives of everyone else, because it's him that the Daleks want. And in that moment, the Daleks are ready to take aim at the Doctor, with the Doctor standing tall, not afraid to face death once again. It would then cut to black, with the text, "To be continued," in place. I definitely have to say, this would definitely be a pretty good starter up for a two-part finale. Whilst the Daleks don't do much until the very end of this story, it would actually help bring up the fear factor for them when they later have a bit more of a bigger role in the second part, with the leading enemies of this part being General Krogstad and his German scientists, who wish to seek victory. However, they'd be painted more in a black and white picture, not entirely evil, just working under an organization that do terrible things. It's also a good chance to see where our main three leads have come over the last few episodes. Stacy would start to realize the horrors of traveling with the Doctor and also confronting one of his worst enemies. The Doctor would also show a bit more of his courageous side, willing to stand up for others as he confronts the Daleks, ordering for them to kill him. And that begs the question, will the second part hold up just as well as part one? Well, you're about to find out. The final story is Conquest of the Daleks. The episode would open where we last left off, as the Doctor stands before the Daleks, moments away from extermination. Just as all hope seems to be lost, General Krogstad and his German soldiers launch a surprise attack on the Daleks, creating a diversion that allows the Doctor, Stacy and Tom to make a desperate escape back to the TARDIS. However, it kills Krogstad and his soldiers in the process. Now safe inside the TARDIS, Stacy begs for the Doctor to return her back to 1970, as she's been shaken by the sheer scale of the danger that they've faced. Tom convinces her that they shouldn't give up now and try and find a way to stop them. And in a similar moment from Pyramids of Mars, the Doctor has no other choice but to take Stacy and Tom straight back to 1970 and show them of the consequences if the Daleks aren't stopped. They're both shown an alternative reality where the Earth is fully conquered by the Daleks, and almost everyone on planet Earth was either killed or enforced to be enslaved as a Roboman. Stacy is utterly horrified from what she's seen. Not only is her family gone, but her friends, the work colleagues that she's worked with, the people that she's seen every day on her way to work, all now being conquered by an empire that seeks only to hate and destroy. Stacy thinks that it's all a trick that the Doctor is pulling off, but only for him to say that it's merely reality all around them if the Daleks aren't stopped. The only reason that Stacy and Tom are still alive is that they've spent quite a bit of time in the TARDIS, but it might not last for very long. The Doctor gives both Stacy and Tom cryonon blockers in order to make sure that they stay alive once outside the TARDIS. The only thing that our TARDIS crew can do is to go back to the source where it all started. However, the TARDIS is being pulled off course and is soon taken to the Dalek homeworld of Skaro. Upon their arrival, they are then brought forward to the Dalek Emperor, who has since been rebuilt since his last appearance in Parting of the Ways. The Doctor soon realizes that they've arrived on Skaro moments before the Dalek spies were sent out to Germany and before the Dalek invasion. Now with the Doctor and friends' arrival onto Skaro, The Daleks intend to use the power of the TARDIS to not only construct a time tunnel, but a paradox machine that will not only rewrite history, but transforming every past defeat at the Doctor's hands into Dalek victories. Stacy and Tom are thrown into a Dalek cell while the Doctor is forced to connect the TARDIS to the time tunnel, seemingly helpless to resist. However, whilst Tom and Stacy are being escorted to the Dalek cell, Tom manages to break off the Dalek ray gun from its casing and destroys the Dalek on the spot. They then make their way to a Dalek factory where they reprogram a few Daleks and turning them good. Tom orders the reprogrammed Daleks to find the Doctor and to defeat the Dalek forces before they try to take over Earth. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's chamber, the Doctor has been putting the final touches into the Paradox Tunnel, with the new Warrior Tank Daleks ready to go in and to infiltrate and kill. However, the Doctor has tricked the Dalek Emperor by having the Paradox machine turn on him. Tom and Stacy, along with the reprogrammed Daleks, manage to find the Doctor and get him out, whilst the reprogrammed Daleks induce in a final battle with the main Dalek guards and the Emperor. As the two factions fight to the bitter end, one of the reprogrammed Daleks activates the time paradox machine, causing the machine to implode and setting history back to the way it was. The Doctor and friends make it back to the TARDIS as the Dalek city completely crumbles around them, bringing the ultimate end to the Daleks. Well, for now at least. The Doctor then apologizes for the danger that his companions had to endure, especially on how he nearly put them at risk to such a dangerous force. Stacy can't really forgive the Doctor at this moment, especially for everything that she's been through. However, Tom, being quite optimistic, suggests a bit of a light-hearted distraction. He suggests that they return back to his time of present-day Earth, and to relax by the seaside having some coffee and chips. A somewhat perfect antidote for all the madness. The Doctor agrees, and lands the TARDIS in a sunlit coastal town. Once there, Tom convinces Stacy that he should stick around for a little while longer, to hopefully ensure the Doctor that there is another way. The Doctor would reveal to his companions that he was simply taking the upper hand against the Daleks, but felt that he might have gone a bit too far. Stacy would forgive the Doctor, assuring him that he won't have to do it alone. And with that, our TARDIS trio reside at the pier, watching the world go by, knowing there is much more to explore in the universe. However, we're not quite done yet, and just like other good stories, there's always a twist at the end.
There's always a twist, there's always a twist, there's always a twist at the end.
Okay, enough joking aside, let's get to our post-credit sequence. In the ancient ruins in the Matrix of Gallifrey, we find that Itraxa, who we met in the first episode, had somehow survived and teleported his way to the ruins of Gallifrey. There he's been able to activate the controls of the Matrix, hoping to learn more knowledge about the Doctor. Suddenly, a figure starts to materialize as a mysterious man in black robes takes a moment to collect himself and scans his surroundings. He then simply asks, "Where am I?" Itraxa then steps forwards, bowing his head slightly in defense.
"You have been released from the Matrix, my lord. Welcome back home to Gallifrey."
The cloaked figure straightens himself, feeling grand that he has been freed from thousands of years in imprisonment. The man pulls his hood up, revealing to be his true identity as the Valeyard, played here by Christian Anholt. Now knowing that he is freed, he is willing to face the Doctor again, as it was he who locked him away deep within the Matrix. He tells Itraxa to join him, as they have a certain someone to visit. The two then break into a TARDIS repair shop, as they steal one of the Type 40 capsules, and causing it to dematerialize from the ruins of Gallifrey. And so yeah, that's what I would do for my first season as showrunner of Doctor Who. There are a lot more self-contained stories rather than story arcs, but I think that's actually rather the good thing. It would start up simple, but get bigger and bigger as each storyline goes along. And who knows, I might even do a follow-up video containing what I would do for my second series. What new stories will be coming up? How will it all come together after that surprise cliffhanger? Hopefully time will tell.
And so there you have it. That's my idea for what I would do if I was Doctor Who showrunner. And let me just tell you, that's only Season 1, or Season A. So, do be sure to join in next time for Season B or Season 2. And let me know if you'd be interested in sharing a story idea which I could include for the season. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, this is Isaac, signing off.